welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is Debbie G of Spirituality Gone Wild.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And it's Friday, and I love Friday. The only thing that's missing on Friday is Neil isn't here today because he's off doing some more of the traveling around to do his flying thing, which, I mean, if you're going to miss the show, you might as well do it for that, right? But other than that, it's a good day. It's a really great day. And it's especially good because I get to talk with my friend, Debbie G. And she's brought along her friend, Symes. So, Debbie, since she's your friend, I'm going to let you introduce your friend to our friends.
Well, I love that. And hi, everybody. And on the eve, well, the eve of 4th of July.
It's the triple eve.
It's the triple E of the eves that are coming. So it is my pleasure to introduce to everybody Sand Symes. And Sand, what's so courageously beautiful about Sand is her dedication to the sovereignty of the human being. She is the modern day shaman. That is exactly what she is. I've been through her meditations. If anyone was lucky enough to see us on Women Rising or on Capagrata, but it's beyond that. She has created a blueprint for walking in your divine, be it masculine, feminine balance that you are. You are so many things, Sand, and even a bio doesn't really give you the glorious, doesn't give us the glorious meaning behind Sand Symes. So I'm going to leave it up to you to just share with everybody the magic that you truly are. You're so, and get ready, everyone, because you're so soft. It's like if you were lying into a down bed somewhere and just kind of, ooh, here we go. So welcome to LOA Today.
Thank you so much, Debbie, and thank you, Walt, for having me. And that's quite an introduction, getting into bed with everybody straight away. So
there you go.
My kind of show. I love it. I'm happy. We're sparking the G vibe.
So I think as a modern medicine woman, humor is a core medicine that I carry. So straight away talking about duvet. So yeah, get cozy and warm. And thank you for that beautiful introduction, Debbie. And I think for myself and for all of us, how I see our humanity, every soul that I have the privilege to sit with, be with, and be part of the world for just a short time. The way I see them, the way I see myself is a multidimensional being. So I can be a duvet and I can dive in bed with you at any time. You know, I can find the ferociousness of that mama bear energy. I can feel the protection. I can feel the vastness and the depth of all beings, because that's what we all are. So at any one time, I meet anyone where they're at in the field as they're revealing their medicines that they carry. Then we're like a sacred mirror of amplification and seeing each other in that moment. And I think one of the most beautiful gifts that I've been able to share for most of my life, is in particular with women. I've worked with men and couples as well, but in particular with women, is when we can't see our own self through our own distortions of the stories that we're carrying or the patterns that we're carrying, things that people have told us way back in the day and we picked up and we believed. So I hold a very strong and powerful sacred mirror so we can find less of that distortion. And that, of course, in any, typical wounded healer, it was my journey. So I, sought teachers and people to help me to find the mirroring that I needed, because my mirror, each time I looked at myself, it was so distorted with stories and patterns and beliefs. So it's been quite the journey to clean that mirror a little bit more and more and become what we say as a shamanic practitioner, let ourselves be a hollow bone, to be a true conduit of what can come through at any one time. So, but I also like being the duvet and the comfy blanket as well. Thank you for having me.
I love the idea of cleaning the mirror. That's a great little analogy.
I like the duvet part too.
The world is our mirror too, right? So,
right.
And that's what we're cleaning. We're basically saying, I want to not only recognize that the mirror is the world reflecting back to me what I'm putting out, but I want to clean up what it is I'm putting out.
Right.
I like that. That's really good.
Yeah. It's thank you. We're all there. I don't know what all the cleaning up. I can see us on there with the rubber gloves on and going around cleaning up the world in some shape or form. But it is, Walt, it really is. It's anytime what's happening out into the world we're also carrying our own inner world inside, isn't it? So all of what's happening out there that we don't like, we don't agree with, we want to change. And I know, let's give Gandhi the credit here, be the change that we want to see. So it always starts with an inside job, for sure. Yeah.
Yes,
I completely agree with that. We have a lot. I think it's a perfect time to talk about being a sovereign being, to talk about sovereignty. So, and also breaking free from the victim mentality. We have a lot of, we all are affected by some recent rulings out there. And the bigger question has not been, for me, it's really been about what is sovereignty and how can we fully embody that? So that's really my question for you, is to really take a dive into that word sovereignty.
Sovereignty for me, it came in a plant medicine ceremony. Am I allowed to say that on your show?
Oh, please. I
didn't know it was an issue, so thanks for letting me know.
Please, would you? Actually, now that you did that, we're going to talk about that.
We got to do. Okay, that's me claiming sovereignty right there. But still, my little girl is going, am I okay? Am I allowed to do that? So a little girl there, I need to clean my mirror in that area a little bit, clearly. So sovereignty came in a plant medicine ceremony, Debbie Walter, about 12 years ago. And I, as a shamanic practitioner and sitting with the shamans and medicine people who have been some of my most powerful teachers that I've had on this earth, but they would always point back to the medicine, go back to the medicine and ask the medicine for your truth and your true answers. So I've sat in over 100 plant medicine ceremonies in over 2 decades and got some of the most profound truths that I could, like mind-bending truths of this world, of this planet, of this earth, and of myself. And sovereignty came in about 12 years ago when I was looking at I actually went in to look at I was looking at colonization and through my own heritage and my own ancestral line, because I'd started to work with my own ancestors. I've been working with my own ancestors for about 2 decades now, since 1996. So I was asking them, I didn't feel that I was sovereign. So, and let me say why. I was brought up in a very, very industrial town in the northwest of England, where there were cotton mills and coal mines all around us. My only green that I ever saw outside of peas on my plate was that we lived facing a church, and it was the graveyard and the lawns of the graveyard that was the greenery. So I didn't see green. And then 2 weeks every year, we would go to the valleys of South Wales to visit my, which we called auntie and uncle, to visit friends of my mum and dad's, and to go to a valley and to see mountains and to find the smell of the earth, which I now know as Pachamama is the word that I use because of the different shamanic practices that I do. Pachamama meaning Mother Earth. Well, Mother Earth, Father Sky, all of time and all of space and time. And I never wanted to leave. They used to have to literally uncoil my fingers off the railings because I didn't want to go back to what I would think is a very black and white, pretty dismal world after I'd had the color and the smell of the mountains and the valleys and the waterfalls of South Wales. Mm. So when in this plant medicine, they took me back to South Wales as a little girl. And they were showing me what my sovereignty was. And they were saying, you've got it distorted. Your mirror is distorted, Sand. Your mirror is distorted because you think that you're only sovereign because of where you were born. And that's nothing to do with you being sovereign. You're sovereign as a soul. You're sovereign because you chose to take a birth on this earth. You're sovereign because you said yes to come back here and have another life here. You're sovereign because you breathe in, and you're sovereign because you exhale. You're sovereign because you exist. And I was on the floor for hours and hours and hours. I had to move through a lot of unworthiness, a lot of concepts, a lot of stories, a lot of patterns, and a lot of ancestral trauma. In my field, my mammy is Irish, so I've got a lot of Celtic, roots. So from the Irish part, it was we had to go all the way back to the famine, back to the ancestral trauma, back to the trauma, and move it all the way through. So I eventually found my ancestors that are they were healers. They were healers and prophets and philosophers and midwives and medicine people, and they were, beautiful souls, and they knew how to work with harmony and balance on the earth. And then even beyond that, they took me back to what they called the ancient ancestors, which they took me all the way back into the ocean from where we came, then back up into the stars from the first explosion and beyond all time and space. And they said, that is who you are. Now do you know how sovereign you are? And I was just flooded, for for hours in that place. So sovereign to me, when I meet a soul and we carry the patterns and stories and distortion from our past, from our childhood, where we don't feel we're worthy, then part of my work is to really have another being hold that mirror, that reflection for another soul, until they can actually see their own sovereignty in that soul. And it's quite a journey. I have a lady, literally happened last night, and we're coming to the end of one of our programs, and she's beautiful, beautiful soul, lives in the deep south, and 69 years old. And she said, I never in 69 years understood my true birthright of being here on this earth. And now I see myself as creator sees me. Well, there wasn't a dry eye in the house, as you can imagine. I was sobbing, lost contact lenses. I sobbed so much, sobbing and sobbing. And it was like, wow, that is the work that we all do. And I know Walt and Debbie, these kind of shows, we bring people on where we can resonate with something that somebody's saying and get to see another piece of us or hear another part of us that thinks, I can get that. I believe that. I can try that on. I can wear that. So that to me is a sovereign soul.
I love that. I love also how the story of your 69-year-old friend in the South, how she, in my words, not your words, in my words, she came into agreement with who she was. She really came to accept herself just the way she was, and not just accept her. That word is actually problematic for me. Accept. I mean, yes, we do have to accept, but really to love yourself, to feel good about yourself. That for me, that's far beyond acceptance.
Yes.
That's embracing. That's authenticating. That is appreciating to the nth degree, and that's what she did. Yeah. That's why you were in tears. That's fabulous.
Yeah. And the tears are that recognition. All souls on that call saw that happen, resonated in the field, could see that, could feel that. And the tears were, for all of us, were of a recognition. It was like seeing literally like a soul awaken in that moment. And 8 weeks of working in the shadow, working on the distortion, working on truths, working on what is it true? Is it not true? What is mine? What was handed down to me? Why did I believe this? And then, do the work of the ancestral work, the childhood messages and the wounds into wisdom, triggers into transformation, which kind of, there's a lot of the words out there right now, certainly on social media, but then you've got to do the work. We don't just wear it as a grand t-shirt, right? It's not just a great coffee cup. It's like, do we really do the work that we're able to get a soul to have that level of seeing herself in the field and claiming it, saying it and claiming it, not just thinking it and thinking, I think it, but claiming it so powerfully the way she did last night. So that was, I share that because it literally happened just last night. So.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. Oh, it is beautiful. And the part about this that is so incredible is that there's no feeling of victim or survivorship in this. This is literally freedom. And there's such a big difference between, I remember in the days when it was all about, just surviving it, or I am victorious over the victim, or any of that. And no longer is it even that, but really the freedom. just that. And I love Walt, how you said acceptance isn't quite it. And you're right. It isn't. It's expansive. It's bigger. It's bigger. It's much, much bigger. Now, is acceptance a step in order to get into that? For sure.
Yeah.
But I love that expansion, how it goes out bigger. And that, I think, is what we are being called to do at this time where we are really looking at our own sovereignty, especially as women, and our choices over our own bodies. And that is happening. That may not affect me today currently, but affects my granddaughter or affects somebody else. Is that sovereignty, and how do we keep our own sovereignty and really love into that beauty that we all are? What can you give those out there that are having a tough time with the shift or are feeling really angry right now? Because I do understand that anger. I do. But I also know there's a balance to be had with this whole conversation. But what can we offer others that are really having a tough time with what's happening in the world right now?
I'm grateful for the question, because I'm certainly not, because any listener might be thinking, okay, if she got that in a plant medicine, do I have to go to a plant medicine journey now to kind of go and get what she got?
I so am about to, but yeah, just saying.
I totally support that, and please do it with an authentic, an authentic shaman or medicine person. And if you can be as close to source as you can. I did most of mine in the jungles of Peru and Ecuador, so be in that environment, and we can't all jump on a plane and go down to Peru and go into the jungle. So to answer your question, Debbie, what can we do in our own homes, in our own skin and our own body, and especially when we're feeling so angry? I'd start with to honor our feelings, honor where we're at in the moment. We have been, certainly as women, we've been shamed and blamed for the emotion of anger. There's so many women. I've been working with women for over 35 years, and I would say one of the core threads and themes that come through most women's stories is when she's been shut down, when she's been feeling strong emotions, and she's not quite known what to do with that and how to be with that and how to regulate or how to move through those emotions. And if there's a parent or caregivers that we've had, or people in our field that have role modeled having big emotions and expressing them in a certain way, then we've adopted a lot of that expression. So it's not even ours. It can be, my mum never said anything, but when my mum was angry, she would go to the kitchen and she would start, she would start doing dishes. And the dishes, I don't know how she never smashed a dish. It was amazing. But she would do the dishes very loudly. She would put pans in the cupboard very loudly. And she would slam the cupboard doors in the kitchen. So we all knew when my mum was angry, that was her release and her expression of anger. So as all of the daughters, we learned how to work that way in the kitchen until I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't have this behavior anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And then it wasn't until I realized I'd adapted my mum's behavior. So how do I express my own anger? And the first thing is honor where we're at any one time. And you're right, Debbie, the what's happening in the political arena now, certainly here in the US, that information it goes so deeply into a woman's body, into a woman's field, and we have a different interpretation of information than our brothers on this planet. And as feelers, as the divine feminine being that we're emotional beings. We're empaths. And it's gone directly, like deep into our womb, because that's the area of the physical body that the woman right now is feeling violated in. So all of the rights that we have, for many women have fought for on this earth, to have balance, we don't want women ruling the world. Well, some people might want women ruling the world. I think it's bigger than that. We want a rightful place at the table. We want to make sure that our voice is represented in the field, in politics or commerce or education or health. We want to make sure that we are taken seriously. So there's been this, for 100 years, women coming to the place and fighting for that. And so it feels for some of us, for some women that I'm hearing, is that it feels like we've gone back 50 years. We've lost something in where we're at right now. And so if the anger is in the field, feel the anger and honor your feelings. And then make sure, and this is the thing, not be careful of how to use it. And as a shamanic practitioner, anger is the element of fire. So if we are going to the element of fire, be careful with the fire element, because fire, when we use her well, she will work well with us. You know, fire, she can keep us warm, she can keep us safe. We can cook with fire. If we dishonor fire, that if we dishonor some of the feelings that we're feeling, we can hurt people. We can make statements. We can get very angry and put that into the field. And it's almost like we're putting more anger out there and more rage. We're feeding the fire of what's already out there. So how do we do that safely? I would say for me, and it's strange, we can dance as women. We can move the body, make sure the body is moving. Talk to friends. And if we're going to vent, make sure it's a vent and say, I need 5 minutes to just vent and get everything that I want to say out. Don't take me, if this is not truth, this is not real. I just need to say the things I need to say to move it out. And give yourself 5 minutes. And then finish, complete it, put hands back on your body, because when we're venting for woman, our nervous system, that vagus nerve, is so activated that the nervous system is saying danger, 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 and we're putting so much cortisol back in the body. We're putting a lot of crap back in the body. We're really, literally frazzled, and we want to get back as quickly as we can to the parasympathetic place, which is calm and balance, before we make any action, before we take action, before we say the next thing. So dancing is one. Cold therapy, as crazy as that sounds, people might not like that. But any cold therapy, you could start with a warm shower, and then at the end of your shower, 10 minutes of cold therapy. And what that does is it actually agitates the nervous system, but in a powerful way, in a controlled way. And you can get your anger out that way, just through it. God, it's so cold and I'm getting my anger out. And then put hands back on the body to tell the body it is safe. You had it. We found anger. We're moving it through. Come back to your body. Hand on heart, hand on belly. Breath work is very powerful. Breath work moves anger through so powerfully. Tears come through. There's a lot of, sometimes people can scream, tears come through, the body goes into an emotional movement. We start to shake. We move it through safely and powerfully through the body. There's many other ways. I could probably write a book just thinking about all the ways that we could do it, but I think I'm going to stop talking there and just see if Walt's got anything to say.
I think you just wrote a book. I mean, isn't that what that was?
I think we should stop talking there.
I mean, that was fabulous. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something too I want to bring in, because I don't really think it's a good idea to overlook this. I think it's important to tie it into the overall conversation. You made the very valid point that women have been taught for years not to be angry. And my wife and I were having a conversation about this the other day. We realized that both genders have been taught messages that were counterproductive to their own emotional health.
Absolutely.
Men were taught that it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to be teary. Women were taught it was okay to be teary, but not to be angry. Right. It was like we were separating the emotions. This gender gets these emotions, this gender gets those emotions, which is damaging to everybody. Right. that harms all of us. Right. So I just want to bring that in there, because everybody is affected by everything that goes on in this world. We get to choose. This is a big thing for me. We get to choose what we're going to give our attention to, how we're going to give our attention, what attitudes we're going to bring toward situations, what feelings we're going to have. We actually get to choose our feelings. That was big for me, by the way. Right. That we were talking before we got started here doing today's episode about how the show got started. And I was telling you a bit about my journey there. Part of that journey was me learning I actually get to choose what my emotional response is. That was news. I had no idea you could do that. And when I found you could do that, well, first of all, I didn't believe it. It took me a while to learn to believe it. And then once I could actually believe it, then it was, well, okay, so what do I want to choose? And so that's why this has become a very important theme from my perspective. We get to choose our emotional responses. What's our emotional response to any situation going to be?
I really appreciate that. We do get to choose But what you were doing was providing some tools. And those were, if you missed it, if you just joined us, go back and watch the replay after this is done, because these tools are important. Now, the one that I've had the hardest time with is the cold. Because let's face it, I like to be comfortable, and cold is not comfortable in any way. But I really love how you were saying, let it come in. And then what we're doing is we're retraining our nervous system so that it's the auto response is not to just go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, but rather for us to be able to control it and feel, and then provide safety for ourselves. So I really loved that. So I want to do a little switchy poony, because, Walt, I love what you were talking about, how that we were taught per gender and gender identified. We were having, these are my things. This is what I love. I take college classes in this because I get this, I just have a thing about it. And I'm doing another one right now. And it's all so interesting to me about gender identification. But really, I'm curious about something. Is what we're experiencing and what we're happening, not just an opportunity for women to step into their divine sovereignty, but for men to step into their divine sovereignty in the respect of being the proper support for a woman, for providing the safe container, the safe space, that the space that a lot of men aren't taught, because they're taught toxic masculinity versus divine masculinity in their sovereign body, in their sovereign space. So is this an opportunity for men? Is this your chance to step up to the plate in a way that you've never stepped up before? Audience, let me know what you think. And Sand, Walt, what do y'all think?
I'm gonna bat the ball to Walt first. Being the male in the trio that we're here, and I certainly would love to come in as well. So,
well, refusing to speak for all male kind, because I don't think that's even possible. I'll tell you where I'm coming from on something like this. I think these are all opportunities. I think every single thing that happens is an opportunity. Certainly, the situation we're talking about today is a huge opportunity, but there are lots of opportunities. And I think probably for me, the biggest lesson that I learned was I just need to pay attention to opportunities when they come along. Mm-hmm. Because they come along all the time. I mean, like daily, like hourly, like minute by minute. We're constantly given opportunities through our experiences in life to deal with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I mean, long lists of things. And how we decide to respond or to not respond. And that's where I'm really addressing right here. How we choose to respond or not respond actually dictates whether or not we're stepping in the way you were describing it, Debbie. It isn't so much whether or not we're doing it for a particular person or in a particular situation. It's more like, are we doing it at all? Are we taking opportunities when they come our way to grow, to build ourselves, to become stronger, to become true to ourselves in a way that was even greater than we were doing 5 minutes ago? Are we on that growth, that spiritually growing path? And are we staying true to that path, and are we continuing to take the steps? If we're doing that, we're doing everything we know how to do. If we're not doing that, then that's time for a gut check.
I really love that. And I love what Jeffrey's saying here. It says, I ask, how can I show up for you? So that's exactly what you're saying, Walt. It's taking that opportunity. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think it's all an opportunity. What I'm looking at is, this is an opportunity for all, just so much bigger. And I love how you've put it into, yes, what each of us can do within our own space. But there's always a golden thread in something that just looks like it's awful and horrible. And I do believe that we have a golden thread here with everything that's been going on. And I just feel that this opportunity is just like COVID. COVID was a grand opportunity for us to take a look at what we were doing. And now we are being asked to look at our own sovereignty and our own choices and what that looks like for us individually. So, Sand, I'm going to let you take on the divine masculine question now.
Good luck.
if we looked at it through the portal of energy, rather than form right now in the human form, and if we looked at it through the portal of energy, there is masculine energy and there's feminine energy, and we could look at that through the portal of how do we identify then. And one of the simplest ways I can describe it, it would be this: if the feminine is the rambling rose, and she's a rambling rose, the feminine, she's coming up through the earth, and we don't know if she's going to go left or right because she's feminine, right? So she's kind of, where's she going to go? And she's going to go left, and she's rambling, so she's a rambling rose, and then she moves a little bit right, and then she kind of goes over here, and then she wants a little bit of sunlight here, then she wants shade here. And then the masculine is the trellis that actually is built for the rose to let her be exactly who she is at any one time. So if the trellis is there to support the feminine, if the masculine is there to support the feminine in having her flower and bloom and blossom in the glory that she is, and I'm saying she and he, back not gender, still back still in energy, then how do we do that inside of ourselves? How do we identify the masculine and the feminine inside ourselves? And so the feminine is we could say, is the whispers or the nudges that we might get from God, spirit, this universe, our higher self, the nudges that we get. So the nudges we can hear, and we get the downloads. And then we've got to put those nudges, if we're going to move with those nudges, we need to take action. So we need to make the phone calls. We need to send the email. We need to build the platform, or set, if it's business, and, put it in a course. But we have to do the doing part of it and build the structure around, so that message, whatever it is, has got a platform or a structure on which to grow, on which to express itself. So that's one way I would describe the masculine and feminine inside of us. I'd certainly say, and this has been certainly true in my life, is I had no idea for many years how masculine I was. I thought just because I, sometimes I had long hair or I had lipstick on, then I was pretty feminine. But I was very masculine in my way because I had a very strong parent. The patriarchy around us, everything was you have to show up looking like this, sounding like this, being like this. Success has to look like this, sound like this, and be like this. I was still looking for the approval of my father and being the perfectionist. I had to, be successful in certain ways because that's how his map of the world was. And I didn't even know what my divine feminine was. And when I first started to sit in women's circles, I was like, get me out of here. I don't want to sit here with all this feminine energy. It's like, I felt so uncomfortable and out of my skin. And thank goodness I stayed. Now I am that. I'm a facilitator, teach women how to be in circle and be with that. So, but I wanted to run. I didn't want to be in my skin. I felt so uncomfortable until I started to break down what my stories that I'd been told about the feminine. And there were deep-rooted stories of the feminine is weak, the feminine is pathetic, the feminine is a victim, the feminine is the less sex. She's this, and she was stacked so underneath everything else. No, she couldn't breathe. So I didn't want to, I didn't even know how to access her until I started to do the work of understanding what divine feminine meant inside a woman's body. And that really was tuning into my own power, tuning into my own intuition, finding where I wanted to be fully expressed and not shut down, take myself to the table and bring wisdom there that I knew that I had. But as a woman, I'd been taught not to speak at certain events or at certain places because nobody wanted to know your opinion, because this was a masculine, male-dominated place. And then when working, again, in the work that I do, working with two-spirited people, as we say in shamanic practices. So really opening up the field of, we're not binary. I know that we live in the world of it's a duality, a world of duality. It's black or it's white, it's right or it's wrong. So we have a very strong ingrained system inside that lives in a binary way. We're not binary. We're multidimensional beings. So, it's a she, it's a he, it's a they, it's all of that. Let ourselves, the full soul, fully express itself through the divine feminine that's inside, the divine masculine that's inside, and allow people to find themselves and find the find the pieces that somebody else gave them, the map of the world, and let them look at that map and say, this is actually not my map of the world. This is not who I am. So when I referred before as two-spirited, in the two-spirited world, from certainly a deep indigenous world that I was part of for 12 years, two-spirited really came from, it's a Lakota way of saying two-spirited is the one who holds both masculine and feminine deeply inside of them. So they don't identify that I'm woman or I'm man. So it could be gay, it could be lesbian, it could be they, just but somebody who's got a very deeply rooted place of two-spirited. And even that, two-spirited is still kind of putting them into two-spirit. We're more than two-spirit, but to identify and deeply honor our two-spirited people who have masculine and feminine so deeply entrenched inside, and they know how to express it. So that's one way of saying it. And then what you were saying, well, earlier with your wife, with the places, I wanted to say this with a little bit with the angry woman and the masculine and feminine, just wrap this around. For a lot of us, my family was very loud, so we expressed love loudly. We expressed anger loudly. You know, it was a loud family. And my husband was a very quiet family. So when I first started when he was first encouraging me, like, be yourself, I could be able to express anger. He was like, okay, express yourself. And he was like, okay, I don't know if I can handle that, because he didn't know how to be in the space with it. So we both had to literally keep renegotiating, like, how can I express without scaring him, where he wanted to leave the room, and that he could still hold a space for that. And how could I kind of know how to regulate and be able to take some anger or expression in a different way, and express it, still express, but in a slightly different way. And inside, I want to finish with this, is at any one time, I honestly believe that there's a little boy and a little girl inside these adult bodies that we carry around. And if we are expressing masculine or feminine, or hurt or pain, which is always underneath anger, there's pain always underneath anger. If we can get to the root of where somebody's in pain, then that's a beautiful piece of work we can do. And if we can find the hurt little boy or the hurt little girl inside of ourselves, then we're working with the masculine and the feminine inside ourselves in a very, very powerful, compassionate way.
I absolutely love that. Thank you, both of you. I think that was really, really in depth. I also know that being a female and when I'm in my masculine, it's because I don't feel safe. And if I don't feel safe, I am definite. And I resonate with your strong masculine. It can be a doozy sometimes. What I love is that I now see it. What I love is that I can now recognize and alter that space that I'm in, you know, rather than carrying it on too much. Mm-hmm. You know, Jeffrey has an interesting question. Do we have models for divine masculinity?
Yeah, and let's bring in what he had a setup for that before. Let me put that up on the screen first, and then we'll go up with the question. Some women want me to be a warrior, some want me to be a listener, some want me to be a healer, some want me to be a clown. It fluctuates. Then he follows it up with his question. He says, his question is, do we have models for divine masculinity? Debbie and I are fighting each other.
There you go. I'm hands off. Go ahead.
Hey,
those of you that are listening on the podcast,
the screen. That's the bottom line.
We're button happy. We just keep okay.
So, what do you think there, Sam? How do we have models for divine masculinity?
I think our model straight away is in masculine and feminine is look at the carers, the parents that we had. I go there first and ask that question of how was the masculine, how was it role modeled when I was a child, and how was the feminine role modeled? And it's an interesting question when we look back, because it isn't, again, it's not a binary thing. In some households, the masculine was dominated by the mother in the house. And sometimes the feminine was dominated and expressed through the father in the house. So if we start there, then that is I believe that's a place where we start to get our information from. And then again, it can be distorted, and because we can we can either take on some of the role modeling that we had as children, or sometimes we can rebel against it and go in completely the opposite direction, because I don't want any of that. I want to be completely the opposite. So, and then we can obviously dance the dance in between those two. And what I would write, because, and it's projection. So if I said, these are mine, and I love what, was it Jeffrey, I love what you said in the question. Some people want me to be a clown, some want me to be a lover, some want me to be a listener, some want me to be the cook, some want me to speak. It's like, yes, all of the above, like all of the above. And especially as the divine feminine, the multifaceted being of the feminine is, we change our mind
quickly.
We're not a linear being. We don't when the masculine part of us can think very linear. We can go, okay, A to B as quickly and as effectively as possible. It's like boom, 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 and we're there. Is that I need to get to the airport, I need to get on a plane, it leaves at this time, I'm done, I know I need to be here, boom, 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 and we've got it moving through. And then the feminine is, how am I going to get there? I want to get there with some spaciousness around it. And again, this is not gender bias. Spaciousness. So me and my husband, when we traveled, we traveled better really separate. We've learned to travel together better. My husband was, I want to be there 5 minutes before the plane gets off at the airport. I'm like, I want to get there 5 hours before. I want to set up home. I want to get the sandwiches. I want to get my tea. I want to sit. I want to get cozy. I want to get all things. I want to feel spacious, because the feminine wants to move. And what direction? I want to walk around the airport. I want to do some stretches. I want to go to the prayer room. I want to do that. I want to people watch. I'm here and I'm there and I'm everywhere. And John's like, can we just get there and just get on the plane and just leave? Is a masculine feminine way of being. So rather than I almost don't want to say who the role models are, because I think it's so personal in who they are, and because we've got all of that that infrastructure of our own patterning and conditioning aside, and then it gets projected out to somebody else. So I use myself as my own example, or what's in my marriage, or what's with my children. I've got a girl and a boy, and I see the masculine and the feminine in them. I see the masculine and feminine inside my mum and dad. So I prefer to keep it that way and then project out, because we're certainly not going to agree on that. So I always keep it, my own lived experience is my own lived experience, and anything else. But Walt, you go ahead and you can bring in who you would say if you want to go in that direction.
Well, look, when I was thinking about the question as it was raised, I loved the way you addressed it, by the way. I think you addressed it beautifully. I kept thinking about it in terms of what a model of either divine masculine or divine feminine is. Because like you said, we're not talking about gender. We're talking about, I don't even know what the word is. I guess it's where we bring the word divine in order to give it some sort of a label. But it is an aspect, I guess, of each one of us. There is a feminine aspect, there is a masculine aspect to each one of us. So where are the models? Well, they're actually in all of us. And I say that from the perspective of what we were talking about before we started the show. We were talking about how I have been so really thrilled with all the perspectives I've gotten by doing the podcast over the years. I've gotten so many great perspectives. So how many models have I had? Well, how many people have I had on the show? And that's just from the show. That's not just like the rest of my life. This is just the LOA Today part of it, right? So the models are everywhere. And I also love that you specifically we're taking the whole concept away from gendered individuals. I was thinking about how, yes, most people grow up in a family where there's a father and a mother, but some grew up in a mother only, right, or a father only, or two mothers, or two fathers, or sometimes it's even weirder configurations than that one. And yet all have access to models of masculinity and femininity, both. And it doesn't matter what the configuration is.
No, actually it doesn't. And I want to tell you why. Because I was thinking, so I'm the one that's like, okay, we're going to the airport. Look at the time. We'll get there. Well, we're there within the hour. We're good. Joe's wanting to get, he wants to get there, and he would prefer to have more space. I'm like, let's roll. We'll get there. We'll go get on that plane, or I have somewhere to be, wherever it may be. And I'm really just like, I control time. I slow time. I'm like, where he's more wants to get there. And so he actually provides more space that way than I do. So there isn't a way to gender identify that, because it's not. And I want to tell you all something, because this is super interesting. I was talking to Joe about this the other day. Listen, gender is not sex. Sex is a biological male or female. Okay, male or female. Body parts. That's the sex. Gender is an identification and it's socialization with gender. Gender changes over time and how that we view gender identification. Today, we have many different variables of what gender really qualifies as. So don't get hung up out there on gender. Don't get hung up on any of this. Get more into the balance of the divine feminine and masculine within you, because that's really that's what I was hearing you say. Looking at the trellis being the space for the rose to move, flow, and open, but that is within us. That is within us. So, Jeffrey, I'm thinking for the model of the divine masculine is exactly what they were saying. It's whatever that you resonate with. Because again, this isn't gender identification. This is simply the spaces within us. Looking at ourselves as the bigger balance, really, because my divine masculine can be not he. See, I just did it. It's so ingrained in our brain, man.
Well, also the wording is tricky, because we're using a concept that we also associate with gender. And so, keeping it straight is tough.
Right. Well, and because of how that we were taught, and it's socialized. Mm-hmm. All of it socialized. Little boys play with cars and trucks, and little girls play with dolls. Now today, we're seeing things that we see it all over the board.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we're seeing children that are saying they're non-binary, and that's all there is to it. They're not going to choose a gender. We see how it's changed in bathrooms and things like that. But that's kind of getting off the point. We're really talking about like Sand was saying and Walt's been saying, it's the energetic aspects of our being and our sovereign being. Because what's going on out there doesn't really matter. It's what's going on in here. So, Jeffrey, how did that resonate? Let us know.
I can tell you something, how it resonates with me, because I used to have that level of confusion that Jeffrey's question expressed. That was a big thing for me for the longest time, trying to figure out, because I knew that what I had been taught was a, quote, masculine role. I had never heard the term toxic masculinity, but it described it pretty nicely. So what did that leave? And there was like this great big hole. There was this empty space that I didn't know what to fill it with. And nobody was really telling me. And so I was like, just kind of floundering, just kind of, moving through time and space and hoping somewhere along the line, something is going to start making sense, because none of it was making sense. And eventually what happened is, because of, really it all came around the financial crisis of 2008 for me. That's when everything kind of fell apart, and that became the beginning for the rebirth, if you will, that came out of it for me. And that seminal time was when I finally, I'd always gone within, but I went within in a new way. That's why I'm kind of struggling for words here, because we talk about having that inward journey, reaching into your internal connection to source and so forth. But I hadn't really learned that part of it yet. I had always been very intuitive, very introspective, but not in the way that we talk about here on this program, or now that we talk about it in the larger society of people who are interested in these topics. It was more, for me, it was more just, I was in my own thoughts, I was in my own space, and I was just trying to make sense of my own world within that space. That's about as far as I'd gotten with it. What changed was when I started to feel okay with who I was in that space. Up until that point, I didn't feel really comfortable with myself. In fact, there's actually a story that I've told a number of times on the show here that was kind of an example of how that played out, because from my early 20s until my early 40s, when I finally met my wife, I had an abysmal history with women. I had my longest relationship was 2 weeks, and I didn't understand why. It took me 20 years to finally learn that what was going on is that I had been sabotaging myself. I had literally been convincing myself that no woman would ever want to be with me before I had even met her. So, I was doomed the moment that I introduced myself to a new woman. I was doomed from the start.
All the way doomed. Just
absolutely crushed.
Oh, well.
And what it changed on was, well, first of all, I let go of that. That's how I ended up finding my wife, because it was the only chance that I had was to just completely let go of not just that, but having a relationship. I just let go of the whole picture, and then my wife shows up. But also what happened was when I let go of all that junk, because I didn't know what to do with it, that's when I started to accept myself. Isn't that a kind of a strange thing? I had to go through all that in order to accept myself. But once I started accepting myself the way I was, everything started to change. Everything started to improve. Everything got better and better and better. So I really believe that when we're talking about divine masculine, divine feminine, what we're really talking about is coming to love and accept yourself.
I think you're right.
I was just going to say that. Sorry, Debbie, go ahead.
Oh no, I know that you're right. Completely. Yes. Jeffrey says, I hear the message, choose the person you want to be and the models will show up. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I completely love that too. One of the cool things, San, that I love is that you do breathwork journeys, and you also do new moon journey, full moon journeys, different things like that. And I'd love to know more.
Thank you. I'm going to share that with you, and I'm just going to piggyback a little bit on what Walt you were saying, Walt. Is when you in that place of like not finding yourself, not knowing myself, not having the confidence. I guess we've all got that journey, haven't we, with the opposite sex, so to speak, or with ourself and with our own masculine and feminine inside. And as a shamanic practitioner, we would say that the whole of our life is like soul retrieval. We're retrieving pieces of our soul, parts of our soul that we have either lost or buried or feel that they've been taken away in some shape or form, or we've given away. And so if life is a soul retrieval, you just reminded me what you were saying about you and finding your beautiful wife. When you found these pieces of yourself, back to that sacred mirror again, she could find you because she could see you, because she could resonate with you. So those pieces of you, she could find. So yeah. I wanted to say it that way. And we could howl and we could cry and we could sob at all the stories that each of us have had and the world has had when we are looking for love, trying to find love, trying to, looking for partners and trying to figure out this glorious thing called life. And the breathwork journeys, Debbie, thank you so much for letting me speak about that. The ancestral breathwork journeys that we offer, it's almost like, well, what you just described, that took you a few weeks and months and years in a 90-minute. Sounds audacious to say that, but a breathwork journey with our ancestors, it's like a soul retrieval. People come to the breathwork journeys because they're looking for clarity, they're looking for inspiration, they're looking to let go and put down the map of the world, pieces of that map of the world that they've been given as a child, and they're looking for something, they're looking for their sovereignty. So it's like a shout out to this universe and saying, I know that I am sovereign, I know that somehow, and yet there's still pieces of me, big pieces of me, that don't quite believe that, or don't know how to access that, or don't even know what that means. And by doing breath work, which in breathwork is what, for me anyway, it's been one of the most powerful, most effective, powerful modalities that I've ever used to get me to move through lifetimes, I guess, or certainly lots of childhood messages that I had. And I shared with you before, sitting in over 100 plant medicine ceremonies, I've found so many different pieces of myself. And yet I would still say this, that breath work has been the most effective. Why? Because you're always in the driving seat. I'm not ingesting a plant medicine. I'm not ingesting something else where to some degree, the plant itself is taking me on that journey. I'm taking myself on that journey in breath work. So it's super, super powerful in an empowering tool. And you can do that. And once people come to the insights that people get, and because we use it, part of it, we actually do bring your healed ancestors into the breathwork journey, especially the ancestors that know the pieces, the luggage that we're carrying that isn't our luggage. It isn't ours. And so we invite the ancestors to come in and loosen or dislodge or dislocate some of those stories and burdens that we've actually thought were ours. And it's been, spectacular over the years that I've been teaching breathwork. I wish I had the modality 20, 30 years ago. I didn't. I've had breathwork in my life for about a decade now, and I've been a practitioner and a teacher of it for 8 years. And I wish I'd have had it, especially when I was a social worker. I'd have been the social worker doing breathwork everywhere.
Seriously, right?
Really. And you talked, Debbie, at the beginning about, that the victim mentality that we have when things have been done to us, and we've all got stories of different degrees of things that happen in our childhood. Breathwork, it honors the wisdom from that. And it allows the empowerment of that. So we no longer carry the victim weeds with us. It's like, that happened then for a reason. This is who I am now. And as the ancestors that I work with have said over and over again, you, Walt, Debbie, myself, and every soul on this earth, you are the ancestor that our ancestors have been waiting for. We have got more resources on this planet now than ever before. And in that ancestral breathwork journey, in a 90-minute session, we can literally blow through and claim and reclaim pieces of ourselves so powerfully. The worthiness comes back. The self-love that you spoke of, Walt, comes back. The confidence starts to come back. We start to literally dislocate and dislodge these old pieces of us, and they go very quickly and very effectively and very fast in breath work. And you are always in the driving seat. So it's you that's having the insights. It's you that's having the incredible visualizations. It's you that might be seeing an ancestor sat with you, and it's not scary. It's not like, oh my God, is that she's talking about dead people? No, I'm talking about particles of energy that is there, and it's beautiful and it's benevolent and it's really, really powerful. We have women recently, 35 years, with an eating disorder, and within 3 breathwork sessions it was dislodged enough, and she found that it was a way that she emulated her mother that was dieting all the time as a child, and the eating disorder came just because she wanted to be recognized and accepted to her mother, so started to adapt her own eating disorder to get the love and the recognition and the connection with her mum. And so it's like, boom, that's gone now. So I could tell you hundreds of stories like that, but it's super, super powerful. And we want to offer that to your community and have your beautiful people come and journey with us as our guests for one of our journeys. I have to say, it's for women or souls that identify as female, that are able to come to there. If you want to, the guys, where my husband works with the guys, I work with but the breath work, it really is powerful. And just as a caveat, I want to, because I know we're live here, I go to the UK and visit my family for the whole of July, and our next breath work isn't until the 11th of August. We come back and then we take July off basically, but the July breath works are free to your community.
Okay, can you also talk for one moment about a phrase you used, because it grabbed my attention. I think the phrase you said was healed ancestors. Mm-hmm. What exactly is that? What does that mean?
It's a way that the ancestors that I work with have given me 2 phrases and said healed ancestors and ancient ancestors. And the reason that they gave us the words to call forth our healed ancestors is sometimes in the field, and I've seen this myself, is some people don't want to call ancestors through. some people have a very difficult and challenging relationship to people who've passed over, and there is a fear in our human psyche that if we're going to call in our ancestors, then the people that we don't want to particularly call through in our life again will come through. So when I questioned that in the field with the ancestors that I work with, and they said, if you say the healed ancestors, what it does is it calms the nervous system down. It gives us a left brain understanding of, oh, it's only the healed ones that are going to come through. And when it calms the nervous system down, we can literally start to open and trust our breath to go exactly where we need to go into the journey. So that's where that came from, Walt. But great question.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was really good. Yeah. Wow, this has been quite the hour. Do you want to bring something else in, Deb? We always go a little bit over, so it's not a big deal.
You know, actually, what I'd like to do is just appreciate all that's came through today. I am in so much gratitude for that. Right now, this is what we need. This is what we need right now. So thank you. We needed this today. We needed to know that we have it within ourselves to completely step into our own sovereignty and I love that we can just access breath. I want to have you on again to talk about plant medicine because I think that would be beautiful. I have an appointment, so I'm going to head out, let you both finish together. Because also Jeffrey has just a really good question. Are the healed ancestors personified in our physical experience?
Yeah,
Great.
that's a good question to answer.
Do I have time to answer that?
Yeah, we'll make a little time. That's okay.
Oh, okay. Jeffrey, that's a great question. Bye, Debbie. Jeffrey, that's a great question. I think in that personify, when we initially in our logical mind, when we think of an ancestor, we will go to either parents or family members that have passed over. And we can go to first generation and then second generation. It's, the grandmothers or grandfathers or great uncles, great aunts. And then we go to the greats, like great grandmother, and then great. And then when it gets to kind of fourth generation out, we lose that in our own sensibility of our own egoic mind, our intellect. And then we're left with who were our great. And some of us know, some people have told me they've had their ancestors who came over on the Mayflower. So there is, if we start to look at our ancestral line, we can find our ancestors, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 generations back. In terms of the healed answers that I'm referring to, especially in breath work, is we want to go all the way back, way beyond what your mind can actually tell you, to access even more powerful place. And that powerful place in our subconscious field is whatever we have been carrying through. It tends to come up more in intergenerational trauma and epigenetics. We want to not pull through more trauma, but if we have trauma in the field, Jeffrey, and trauma very much lives in the tissues of our physical body. We want to pull that trauma through and then tip that out on the other side through breath work. We don't have to relive it. We don't have to be re-traumatized. And breath work, which it was used very powerfully, very simple, the 4-box breath. Take an in-breath in, count for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, let it go 4 seconds, yeah. And that was, that's breath work. That's an element of easy home breath work when we get hyper agitated or we get angry. It was a breath work I meant to share earlier in the call today. And that was used in the Vietnam War with soldiers and people, with people that were suffering major PTSD. So they couldn't even tell their story or even access because the brain couldn't handle the amount of information overload that their nervous system had actually experienced. So what I'm pointing to here, and it's such a great question, is when we ask for the healed ancestors, your intellectual mind will go to, as I said, first, second, third generation. But in breath work, when we start to call in the ancestors, they help to bring through all the healed ancestors that are way back that we don't even know about, and yet have got some kind of a key or a code or an ability to open up any ancestral trauma that we are still carrying, especially the trauma we don't even know we're carrying. And they're able to move through that with the breath work, because your breath is your own signature perfume in the universe. Your ancestors find you on your very in-breath and your out-breath. So they get called through with your invitation. They come through and find you on your very breath, because there's only you on the planet that breathes the way Jeffrey breathes on this planet. You are the unique being that you are. And so your ancestors will come forward in that. And then if we go really far back, and I've had many of my clients get to this point, including myself as a practitioner myself, if we go all the way back, then it starts to split, and other lifetimes can come and really bend in your mind now. Other lifetimes come in the field, and any other lifetime that you've had on the planet, those ancestors get called forth, because we might have carried something in from another lifetime. And then we go all the way back, and we're literally going back to source. And we can call that ancestor, light, God, all being, but you literally go back to be with the everything that you are. And then from that place, that's the healed place. That's the remembrance. That's the magic. That's the miracle. And then we travel back through, it's like, as the healed version of ourselves. And as you do that, and in many of my shamanic practices, especially indigenous wisdom, is when we do that work and we pull that through, you're healing all of your ancestral lineages on the matriarchal and the patriarchal line. And you're healing all ancestors that have been, and you're actually blowing it through to all the ancestors yet to come, to all the next generations to come, because you've just shapeshifted a reality. We can't change the past, but we can absolutely start. The past starts now. It starts in this present moment. We don't change the past, but we shapeshift the reality to start a new version of a new story right in that moment. So I hope that answered the question.
That's beautiful. I love that. I think you did a wonderful job answering the question. In fact, I think you actually went beyond answering the question. You gave us a model for understanding how this whole thing works. And when you were doing that, I was tying my masculine linear thinking in. I was actually tying in the idea that since we all have generations going back, I mean, if you think about how all of our family trees work, we have 2 parents and 4 grandparents and 8 great grandparents and 16 and 32 and 64. You go back far enough, we're all connected. We are all related.
Exactly. That's the beauty.
Yeah. So that's what when you were making that little journey, you were taking us on that journey back to until we were all at source. That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about, yes, we started with our own family tree, our own ancestral history and so forth, but it kept branching until we were all connected.
Right. And there's so many people who in breathwork that get to that point very quickly, like 2 or 3 sessions in. It's not 10 years in therapy here or 20 years.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
And that's why it's fast, it really is fast and very effective. And that's where a lot of people get to. And then and then all of a sudden with that, Walt and to Jeffrey, to finish this, is what's so powerful and potent and beautiful about that is, all of a sudden, if we're all connected and we have a lived experience of that, then we stop pointing at our differences as being we stop damning other people, and we realize if we're all connected and we all kind of came from the same source, then we stop using differences as a weapon, and we look at differences as a way to connect even more. Like, wow, my life wouldn't be as rich as it was if I didn't know about your culture and your tradition and your way of being and your God and the way that you cook food and the way that you look at this. So the richness and the tapestry of our humanity gets a chance to exhale, literally the ultimate breath, that we can exhale as a humanity in a way of connection and less separation on this earth.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that tremendously. This has been great. Thank you so much for coming onto the program and sharing all this wonderful shamanic wisdom. I never know what to do with the word shamanic. I've interviewed people and talked about it, but it's one of those things where it's one of those concepts where I haven't totally taken on board exactly what it means for me. I kind of accept that, well, it means something for the person I'm talking to, so I just leave it at that. You actually turned it into something for me. So thank you for that. That was really, really great. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you also. I'll be sure to save the link to your program so that anyone who wants to be a part of that can be a part of that. They'll be part of the show notes. So ladies, if you're tuned in and interested, check out the show notes. You'll find the link. And yeah, that pretty much does it. let's just finish with one other final thought. For people who want to find out more about Symes and what you do, how do they find you?
They can find me in my name. They can find me on my website. If you are generation that you're on Instagram, come find me on Instagram or Facebook, the usual places that you can find me. Just Google my name and you'll find me. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, again, thank you for joining us. This has been really wonderful. And thank you to our live streamers, and especially thank you to all of our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.